He had always been unpleasant to look at, but he had never been cruel. He lived a mundane life as a typical office worker, doing his best despite his unattractive appearance. Shy Drew wasn't flashy or popular, but he treated others with decency and lived within his means. That life ended the moment a woman on a crowded train falsely accused him of groping her. Society judged him instantly. No one looked past his face to hear his side, and he soon found himself dragged into a legal battle. Hoping to put it behind him, he accepted a small penalty by pleading guilty, only to lose his job and his reputation. His label as a criminal stuck. Years passed, and eventually, the woman who ruined his life was exposed for setting up multiple men. She didn't do it for profit, just for twisted amusement, targeting those she found unattractive. Though the truth surfaced, Shy Drew had already lost everything. The incident left him broken, and he sank into isolation. He burned through what little money he had left, and even his parents' financial support dried up. With no hope in sight, he became a recluse. One day, while scrolling through the news, he came across a report about strange disappearances in his area. He half-jokingly wished he'd vanished too. Scanning the comment section, he found a bizarre post from someone claiming to have visited another world, but returned to Earth after allocating their stats incorrectly and sacrificing half their lifespan. Desperate, Shy Drew followed the odd directions in the comment, thinking it was nonsense but too hopeless to care. As the clock struck 2, and he stood with arms raised, his laptop flickered, displaying an unusual prompt: "Do you wish to start a new life?" Thinking it was some sort of prank, he clicked next. The next screen revealed that he would begin a new life at 16 years old, and allowed him to customize his stats, including appearance. Tired of being ugly, he slid the appearance score into the negatives, down to -255, unlocking a massive pool of bonus stat points. He then discovered a disturbing feature: the worse he made his character's life, the more stat points he gained. He began stacking penalties, reducing his income by 10,000%, losing 10% of his HP upon contact with any girl, and finally, adding a fatal condition: if he ever lost his virginity, he would instantly die. That last sacrifice netted him an astronomical reward, 100 trillion stat points. Just as he was about to assign them, the timer on the screen hit 0. His consciousness was yanked away. When he woke up in the new world, he found himself even more grotesque than before, and with a body weight that dwarfed the average American. Just then, a few more people enter the room, and Shy Drew awkwardly looks away upon noticing the two girls in nothing but their undergarments. One of the guys, confident and attractive, takes off his shirt and gives it to the girl trembling from the cold. Trying to act respectfully, Shy Drew follows suit and offers his own shirt to the other girl. However, she immediately rejects it, calling him an ugly fat loser and refusing to wear something he's touched. The charming guy introduces himself as Seiji. The blonde, petite girl keeps her name to herself, while the other girl tells them her name is Seika. They all mention they're 16 years old, but the girls are skeptical that Shy Drew is the same age. Seiji then steps up and confirms that all of them seem to have arrived in this world using the same method. While the others talk, Shy Drew starts searching through the room. He's not interested in making friends. He opens a drawer and discovers a gold coin, but the coin vanishes as soon as he touches it. He figures it must be because of the condition he selected about reducing his starting funds. Still, he brushes it off. Shortly after, Seiji enters the room and suggests they all gather supplies together. They come across some weapons, clothes, and a few more coins. Shy Drew doubts the clothes will fit him, but to his surprise, they magically adjust to the wearer's body size. Later, the girls start discussing how to split the coins. They count 7 coins but notice there are 8 people present. Suspicion falls on Shy Drew, and he quickly realizes that the missing coin must have been the one that disappeared earlier. Instead of defending himself, he says they can keep all the coins. Seiji objects, saying it's not fair, but Seika insists that since Shy Drew didn't help in finding them, he doesn't deserve any. Shy Drew already finds her annoying but keeps calm and turns his attention to Seiji, asking if he can trade the coins for an axe. Seika immediately protests, and even Seiji says he can't make such decisions on his own. He admits that in his past life, he had selfish tendencies and poor communication skills but wants to change in this one. He also hints that Shy Drew has his own issues to work through and encourages him to start improving. Eventually, they agree to split the weapons using rock, paper, scissors. Shy Drew loses every round and ends up with just a wooden club. Later, Seiji suggests a handshake to mark the beginning of their journey, but Shy Drew declines, he's not taking any unnecessary chances. Soon, they find a map that leads to a nearby town. But when they open the door, they are immediately confronted by a small goblin ready to strike. Seiji quickly reacts and slays the goblin in one hit, but then sees more enemies approaching. Taking charge, he asks the blonde girl to back him up on the front lines while Seika prepares her bow to assist in the fight. Shai-Dru tells Seika to stay behind and protect herself while he deals with the goblins alone. Despite the warning, Seika proves to be completely inexperienced. She can't even manage to string her bow. While Shai-Dru silently judges her lack of skill, a goblin sneaks up behind him and launches an attack. Shai-Dru intends to eliminate it quickly, but to his shock, his current strength is pitiful. The tiny goblin manages to force him back. Confused as to why he's so weak despite having assigned himself 100 trillion stat points, he suddenly recalls he never actually finished allocating them. With no time to fix that, Shai-Dru decides to face the goblin with what he currently has. After a brief struggle, he brings it down with a clean strike. As soon as the creature is defeated, a system screen appears, revealing that he has skyrocketed to level 32 from just that one kill, thanks to a massive 10,000% experience boost. Around the same time, Seiji and the small girl level up too and start pumping their stats into strength and stamina. Shai-Dru notices that no one else can see his system interface and decides to distribute 1 trillion points to each of his attributes temporarily. The moment he does that, his system begins to glitch, and he's enveloped in a golden glow. Perplexed, he wonders what's going on, then the system announces his new class, selected based on his immense stats, the Almighty God. Shai-Dru is stunned and can't fully comprehend what this title entails. Before he can process it all, another goblin attacks, but this time, its strikes have zero effect. Curious, Shai-Dru tries out his new power. With a light flick of his finger, he sends the goblin soaring into the atmosphere. Strangely, no one seems to notice what just happened. They all assume it was just a strong gust of wind. Seiji and the little girl continue fighting goblins, while Seika is still fumbling with her bow, nearly in tears. Feeling a bit sorry for her, Shai-Dru pretends to be obsessed with bows so she doesn't feel embarrassed. Claiming he urgently needs to string one himself, he tricks Seika into handing it over. With his absurdly high dexterity, he strings the bow in an instant. Impressed, Seika asks him to shoot an arrow as a thank you. Shai-Dru agrees and chooses one of his newly unlocked skills, Thunder Arrow. He fires it, but it doesn't hit any goblins directly. Instead, it shoots into the sky. Confused about his aim, he watches as a massive magic circle appears overhead. Out of it emerges a colossal thunder dragon that slams into the battlefield, annihilating every goblin present. The others are left in awe, but Shai-Dru plays it off, claiming he learned that trick in archery club. Seika, ever gullible, believes him without question. She then tries to help in the battle by firing arrows randomly, while Seiji and the small girl decide to clean up the remaining enemies. Meanwhile, Seika quickly uses up all her arrows. Feeling down about her repeated failures, Seika grows frustrated with herself, while Shai-Dru watches sympathetically. Using a skill, he transforms a stick into makeshift arrows and points out a few dropped items on the ground. Seika cheers up and grabs them, but ends up wasting everything again. Meanwhile, Seiji and the others finish off the goblins with ease. Soon they make it to town. While the rest of the group rushes off to grab food, Shai-Dru quietly slips away, believing that someone as awkward and unwanted as him doesn't belong with them. He finds a quiet spot by a fountain and sits, stomach growling. Just then, a cat walks up to him. He reaches out to pet it but hesitates, worried it might be female and cost him 10% HP due to his curse. Out of nowhere, Seika appears, startling him so badly that he falls into the water. When he climbs out, soaked and miserable, Seika hands him a burger. She bought it for him as thanks for his earlier help, knowing he can't afford food. Shai-Dru starts warming up to her kindness and takes the burger, but when their fingers touch, he's hit by a violent shock, launching the burger and him both away. The damage is catastrophic, enough to destroy the world multiple times over, but worse than the pain is the look of disappointment on Seika's face. She believes he rejected the burger on purpose. Thinking quickly, Shai-Dru falls back on his old silver-tongued ways from his salesman days and tells her he flinched because of her beauty. He says he truly does want to eat the burger she gave him. Seika, still moved by his earlier help, says that one's too dirty now and gives him hers instead. While he's eating, Seiji and the lowly bunch show up, and Shai-Dru decides to stick around until he can repay Seika for her generosity. Later, Seika runs into trouble again. She's out of arrows and rushes into a shop to buy more. She insists she can pay, but the shopkeeper says her inventory is full. Shy Drew is with her and wants to help, but he hides the fact that he can create arrows himself. When Seika asks if he's not buying anything, she quickly answers herself, remembering that he's broke. Outside, Seiji and the others come back after securing an inn. Shy Drew says he'll stay in the park since he can't afford a room, but Seika insists on paying for him. When he protests, she teases him with a guilt trip, asking if he really won't let a girl treat him. Before he can respond, she grabs his hand and pulls him along. Fortunately, since she touches him through his clothes, he takes no damage. That night, Shy Drew stares at the ceiling, thinking he can't stay here forever and live off their charity. Even with his income being slashed to 1,000th of what it should be, he's determined to earn something on his own. And just then, a new idea sparks in his mind. The following morning, Seiji and the group are greeted by the sight of a table full of tasty snacks and fresh meals. Shy Drew cheerfully invites them to join in, saying he can't possibly finish it all on his own. Curious, they question how he managed to gather so much food without any money. Shy Drew explains that he used a clever trick that encourages others to offer something in return. In reality, he simply crafted some arrows out of sticks and traded them through bartering instead of using currency. Seika, concerned, tells him that he doesn't have to go that far just because he's short on funds. She'd gladly help if needed. But Shy Drew believes he's already settled what he owed her, so he doesn't feel obligated to stick around anymore. After finishing the meal, Seiji brings out a map and says it's time to take on some quests to start earning cash. He notes that the creatures they fought the day before didn't leave behind any loot or coins, so he's set on exploring a nearby cave. Shy Drew praises Seiji's strategic thinking. Right then, a rugged-looking man appears and offers to guide them to the cave. He introduces himself as Kayashiro and claims he, too, is someone who has been reincarnated. Upon seeing Shy Drew's unusual appearance, Kayashiro is momentarily startled but quickly composes himself and asks if they're all newcomers. Seiji gets up cautiously to speak with him. Kayashiro then pulls out several green cards, explaining that these were items found at the initial log cabin. Using one provides a free stay at an inn. Seika becomes alarmed upon realizing they never found those cards. Kayashiro reassures her that it's still possible to redeem them and offers the cards without hesitation. She quickly accepts, surprising Seiji, who remains suspicious of Kayashiro's motives. Shy Drew also feels uneasy, suspecting Kayashiro might be someone who takes advantage of new adventurers rather than genuinely helping them. Still, Shy Drew trusts that if anything goes sideways, he can handle it. He allows Seiji to decide. After thinking it over, Seiji concludes that hiring Kayashiro is worth the risk. They need both guidance and faster ways to grow stronger. Kayashiro leads the team to the cave, where a group of goblins appears. Seika immediately starts shooting arrows, but none find their mark. Disappointed, Shy Drew watches as Kayashiro gives her a strange piece of advice. Imagine each arrow is worth 1,000,000 yen. Although she's usually proud of her wealth, visualizing the high value makes her take the shots more seriously. Her focus improves, and she successfully downs a goblin with a precise hit. They continue deeper into the cave, and Shy Drew finds himself impressed. Kayashiro is actually proving to be a capable guide. Later, Kayashiro gives tips to everyone on how to properly wield their weapons. However, Seika slips back into her old habits, launching arrows recklessly. Kayashiro then asks Shy Drew why he's not practicing, and Shy Drew simply replies that, for now, he doesn't have any useful combat skills. Kayashiro understands that progressing in levels while wielding a staff is no easy task, but he reassures Shy Drew not to feel discouraged, emphasizing that the staff's ultimate ability is truly extraordinary. Shy Drew already knows what he means. He once encountered a massive orc while collecting materials for his arrows in the forest. Curious, he attempted to use his most powerful skill, but the system intervened with a severe warning. Activating the move would obliterate everything within a 200-kilometer radius, potentially causing over 1.5 million casualties. He wisely chose to cancel it. Kayashiro, meanwhile, advises Shy Drew to stay proactive in battles, warning that inactivity may lead to being sidelined, just like what happened to him. He starts reminiscing about his past, when he was part of a mercenary team. While their leader eventually rose to kingship, Kayashiro ended up having to step down. He holds high praise for the king, claiming he's at level 80 with all stats exceeding 160, though this doesn't impress Shy Drew in the slightest. Soon, they arrive at a cavern resembling ancient ruins, sparking excitement in the group, except for Seika, who's visibly nervous. But upon entering, curiosity takes over as she examines the limestone formations, only to pout when Kayashiro warns her to steer clear due to potential danger. Shidru starts questioning if Seika is truly just a child, and Seiji brings it up more tactfully. Seiji reveals he was 30 years old in his original world. In response, Seika admits she's actually 17 and studying for her college entrance exams. As Seiji shifts the conversation to academics, Shidru realizes Seika is at least quite intelligent when it comes to studies. They then encounter some bat-like creatures and make their way to the boss chamber, where Seika finally starts grasping the importance of caution and planning. Kayashiro stops her from barging in, warning her she'll be instantly killed if she keeps acting so recklessly. She listens and steps back. Seiji suggests they wrap things up for the day and expresses gratitude to Kayashiro, who responds by saying Seiji is suited to be a leader. Before they head back, though, Kayashiro has one more thing in store for the newcomers, a surprise event. He leads the group to a special meeting room, a secure zone crafted by another summoned individual, where monsters and magic can't intrude. Inside, snacks and drinks are laid out for celebration. But Shidru quickly becomes suspicious. His poison detection ability reveals that the rims of the drink cans are laced with a sedative. Seiji refuses the drinks out of caution, but when Kayashiro appears genuinely hurt by the distrust, Seiji apologizes and agrees to join in the celebration. Shidru is quietly disappointed by Seiji's kindness. As everyone begins indulging in food and refreshments, Shidru initiates small talk to keep the mood light while secretly preparing to cast antidote spells. He casually asks about their lives before arriving here, and the atmosphere immediately turns heavy. It dawns on him that nearly everyone, including himself, was escaping something in their past. Then, breaking the silence, Seiji chooses to share a bit of his own history. He confesses that he dropped out of school after losing interest and went on to establish a startup called Success Life. The name rings a bell for Shidru. He recalls once pitching a product to that very company, and the CEO bore an uncanny resemblance to Seiji. It turns out Seiji hasn't forgotten either. Shidru left a lasting impression on him. Though Shidru doesn't admit who he is, Seiji recalls a mysterious salesman who showed up uninvited, trying to pitch an overpriced copier. The salesman claimed he could bring a smile to his face and never let him down. He also told Seiji to take it easy since he was the boss. Those words struck a chord, and Seiji ended up letting his team take the reins of the company. At first, things flourished. His business thrived, everything seemed perfect, until he made a drastic decision to replace all his staff with artificial intelligence. That move backfired terribly, driving the company into bankruptcy. Seiji was crushed, burdened by guilt that he squandered the opportunity that salesman gave him. Since arriving here, he vowed never to let anyone down again. Then he suddenly reveals something shocking. The name of that salesman was also Shidru. But our chubby protagonist denies being the same person. Right then, everyone begins to pass out from being drugged. Kaisho enters with his goons to capture them. But Shidru is only faking sleep, waiting for the right moment to act. As the thugs begin cuffing everyone, Shidru prepares to strike, but Seiji suddenly rises and warns them not to hurt anyone. Kaisho brushes off the warning, knowing Seiji can barely stay on his feet, and instructs his men to continue. Shidru holds back, worried Seiji might get caught in the crossfire. But Seiji still tries to resist and ends up getting slammed into a wall. Kaisho tells his crew not to damage the goods or their value drops. That remark infuriates Seiji. He speaks up, saying the people here are already broken by life, and when they finally get a second shot, people like Kaisho just shove them back down. Kaisho tells him to save the speech and orders his men to pack him up. At that moment, Shidru jumps into action. Instead of using flashy moves, he body slams the thugs, crushing them under his weight. He tells Seiji to escape with the girls and leave the rest to him. But Seiji refuses to leave him behind. He warns the goons not to mess with them, saying he can end this in a single hit. Naturally, they think he's bluffing. The attackers rush forward, but Shidru bounces around, soaking up their attacks like a sponge and flattening them. Kaisho tells his goons to take care of the bouncing pig, and Seiji urges Shidru to get out of there while he holds them off. The thugs pile onto Shidru, even shoving their fingers up his nose, but still can't take him down. Then, a glow bursts from Seiji's palm. He tells the goons to step away, or his light of truth will strike them down. Shocked, they ask what kind of skill this is. Seiji explains that he once made a solemn promise in his special notebook to never betray his friends. If he ever did, he'd pay dearly. That vow earned him massive bonus points, which he channeled into a unique skill that activates when he's enraged. He warns the thugs that this is their final chance to leave, but Kaisho scoffs, saying they'll just slice off his hand before he can use it. Shy Drew, curious to see Sage's ability, volunteers to shield him. They decide to fight together, realizing they're outnumbered. Then, Seiji unleashes his hidden power, transforming into a glowing form even Goku would envy. He tells the thugs their judgment day has arrived. Seiji launches into a dramatic and over-the-top speech that makes everyone in the room question their life choices. He claims that his deepest emotion stirred awake a hidden identity slumbering within him, and with it, the mysterious awakening of his third eye. Now donning the persona of the winged hero Aldine, he dramatically announces that he's about to face his first major battle as a protagonist. Meanwhile, Shigeru stands off to the side, absolutely baffled by what he's witnessing. Just like every stereotypical anime lead, Seiji loudly declares the name of his attack before actually doing anything. But Kiyoshiro and his gang of hired thugs just stare, confused. They have no idea what Seiji is talking about or what any of his attacks actually do. Then, out of nowhere, Seiji halts mid-punch. Everyone freezes, unsure of what just happened or what he's thinking. Kiyoshiro straight up asks what his deal is, and Seiji responds in the most self-righteous way possible. Justice should be served by the law, not through personal revenge. Even though he has the power to end it all right now, he restrains himself. He tells Kiyoshiro that he's offering a chance at redemption, surrender and answer for his crimes properly. It's not the brightest plan. Even the most clueless person in the room realizes how dumb this is. Predictably, Kiyoshiro fakes surrender, and when Seiji lowers his guard, he lashes out. Luckily, Shigeru jumps in at the last second, using his incredible pig-like reflexes, only to get smacked around for interfering. But Shigeru doesn't care, he literally starts picking his nose mid-fight. Then, with no one watching, he flicks his booger so hard that it crashes through a wall. Everyone turns in shock, and Shigeru blames it on Seiji. Terrified by the supposed strength of Seiji's power, Kiyoshiro and his gang decide to give up for real this time. Kiyoshiro breaks down and begs for mercy, promising they'll never hurt anyone again and will turn themselves in. Then Shigeru jumps back into the weirdness, lines them all up, and tells Seiji, still in Aldine mode, to strike them with his whip of love, so they can understand the pain they've caused others. But before it happens, Aldine turns back into Seiji, his rage cooling off. Seiji refuses to use the whip in anger. He wants each strike to come from empathy, not vengeance. He explains that love is about sharing in others' pain, not inflicting more of it. Then, in a strange display of affection-fueled justice, he gently slaps each gang member across the face. After the whole bizarre ordeal, Seiji carries the unconscious girls to their beds, handling everything himself since Shigeru says he's not allowed to touch women. Exhausted from the effort, Seiji collapses from overexertion. Of course, the peace doesn't last. The reformed mercenaries immediately revert to their old habits and start plotting another robbery. Seeing Shigeru as a useful human shield, Kiyoshiro invites him to join their crew, even promising access to some beautiful company if he agrees. But Shigeru isn't tempted. With everyone else out of commission, he finally has a chance to go all in, and he's ready. After breaking free from his restraints, Shigeru first gently drapes a blanket over Seiji, striking a heroic pose. But the mercenaries aren't impressed, questioning how someone who looks like a classic anime side character could possibly be a good guy. Regardless, Shigeru completely wipes the floor with them, though it seems the animators skipped animating the entire fight scene, likely to save the budget, cutting straight to the aftermath where the group is now loaded with cash for handing the mercenaries over. Seiji, feeling responsible for the recent chaos, suggests giving a cut of the reward to the girls, even though they spent most of the ordeal sleeping. He insists it's only fair, considering he risked everyone's safety by trusting someone he shouldn't have. The girls, however, reassure him not to beat himself up. They say he was actually really cool while acting under his alternate identity. When they ask if Shigeru had been conscious during the battle, Seiji jumps in to answer, saying Shigeru shielded him with his body during the chaos. Because Shigeru went so far to help despite being kind of useless normally, Seiji thinks he deserves part of the payout. But Shigeru immediately turns it down, saying if he takes anything, the money would feel worthless. Shigeru then uses this moment to exit the group. He says he'll be heading out after settling his debt with Seika. To do so, he requests Seiji to let Seika hold onto his portion of the money, giving some lame excuse that no one bothers questioning. Seika happily agrees and even offers to carry everyone's share, promising she'll manage it wisely, though realistically, she's likely to spend it all on shopping and other stuff. In the end, only Shigeru gives his portion to her. Overjoyed, Seika drags him off to a burger joint and treats him to a meal using his own cash. With his debt finally cleared, Shigeru plans to quietly slip away from the party after lunch. While munching on burgers, Seika becomes curious about his status screen. Shigeru plays it off, saying his stats are nothing special. Seika thinks it's a waste he didn't know earlier, and tells him that back when she first arrived in this world, she learned that lowering your appearance stat gives you extra points to boost your other abilities. Apparently, she sacrificed 16 full points from her looks to raise her other stats, leaving Shigeru wondering just how stunning she would have been without that trade-off. Noticing how Shigeru is closely watching her face, Seika bluntly asks if he thinks she's pretty. When he admits he does, she confesses that she actually scribbled a note asking to be beautiful before arriving here, which caused her appearance stat to override the deduction. Shigeru is stunned and immediately filled with regret. Just then, Seika notices a stray cat and gets excited but hesitates to go to it, explaining she's never tried before since she couldn't walk in her past life. As she stumbles, Shigeru instinctively leaps in front of her, once again playing the role of the unexpected hero. To his dismay, she doesn't trip or fall, she just looks at him and questions what he's up to. Flustered, he quickly claims he's working out to burn off extra calories. But both the audience and Seika know it's a weak excuse. She chooses to ignore him and continues petting the nearby cat. Meanwhile, Shigeru excuses himself, saying he needs to use the restroom. Inside, he's left alone with his thoughts, and his emotions begin to swell. He recalls her earlier words and expressions, especially when she praised her own appearance but avoided touching her face, instead placing her hands forward. Then came the moment she stood up and said she could walk. His mind connects the dots. Either she had a disability in her past life or she had difficulty socializing. Whatever the case, he finds it painful to think about and believes she deserved better in her previous life. While he sits there for quite a while, lost in reflection, she begins to worry. She knocks on the door, asking if he's feeling ill and offers to get him some medicine. Her thoughtfulness only deepens his emotional response. He wonders why someone so gentle had to endure such hardship. Then it hits him, he holds divine abilities, absolute powers. He remembers that he's essentially a god himself. With this in mind, he promises to give her the kind of life she was once denied. He wipes his tears, regains his composure, and heads out to join her. When they meet, she informs him that the others are waiting, but he lingers for a while longer, staying close to her. Soon after, they regroup with the rest of their companions. Seiji explains that since they're becoming a party, every member must take responsibility. Although Shigeru isn't particularly excited about the idea, he doesn't object to being part of a team and waits to see what unfolds. Seiji announces he'll be the hero. He then designates Seika as the mage, and suggests Shigeru should be their Epicfighter. Shigeru doesn't really want a role at all. He turns to Seika and asks if she wants the Epicfighter position, but she declines. She wants to be the hero too, the same title Seiji has already claimed. He refuses to relinquish it, so Shigeru proposes that she take the Epicfighter role instead. She insists on being the hero, but the group eventually moves on without settling it. Outfitted in their assigned gear, Shigeru observes how well prepared Seiji is. He's dressed perfectly for the hero role, with everything tailored and styled appropriately. Seika may not have hero clothing, but she still stylized herself with flair, mixing her mage outfit with decorative hero-like touches. Now their group consists of a hunter, a hero, a mage, and an Epicfighter. Seiji then outlines their upcoming mission. They'll be heading to the Principality of Valeria. But he includes a strict rule: no one can spend more than 3 rira on snacks. This disappoints Seika, who loves her treats. After the meeting ends, she approaches the only other girl in their group and initiates a conversation. It's the first time she's made such a gesture, and Shigeru is quietly happy to see her trying to open up to someone. Seika invites the girl to try skipping rope with her. The girl agrees and goes off to change. While she's gone, Shigeru reflects on what led her to pick a skipping rope in the first place. Earlier, when they were out shopping for gear, she didn't like any of the usual weapons. But the moment she saw the skipping rope, she instantly connected with it and decided to buy it. The vendor assumed she practiced martial arts and advised her to handle the rope carefully. Afterward, Shigeru had asked her if he could give it a try. They found a quiet place, and he began showing her how to use it. He jumped impressively high, catching her by surprise at how effortlessly he moved. He encouraged her to give it a shot. By the end of the session, she felt like she had mastered it. She told Shigeru she wanted to talk to the other girl and learn how to skip rope together. She admitted she didn't even know the girl's name and wanted to become friends. Shigeru thought that was a great idea and supported her. That's what brought them to the spot where they are now. He quietly watches from behind as the girls skip together. After Seika finishes her turn, she hands the rope over. While the other girl starts using it, Seika asks her name. The girl suddenly blushes deep red. Seika senses she's hesitant to share her real name, understandable, given that they all left behind difficult pasts. So Seika decides to give her a new one, Leeds. The girl lights up with joy and soars into the air. She rises so high that Shigeru is taken aback, wondering what her ability might be. He remembers how she came through their earlier battle unscathed. The villagers are amazed at her flight and cheer for her. Many parties invite her to join them. Caught up in the attention, she forgets about Seika. Seika tries calling her again and again, but Leeds doesn't hear. This makes Seika cry. Shigeru tries to approach, but some villagers mock him and even warn him to back off. Leeds notices and tells them that Seika and Shigeru are her party members. She rushes back to Seika, but Shigeru scolds her gently for ignoring the sweet girl who was calling her. They return home together, and Seika gradually relaxes. Later, Seika finds a letter from Leeds, apologizing for what happened. After Seika leaves, Leeds visits Shigeru. She leads him to a quiet room and bows, offering a deep apology. Curious, Shigeru asks her why. That's when she tells him she knows his real identity, his Mr. Y. Shigeru is caught off guard but maintains his composure, asking Rise why she believes what she just said. She calmly explains that her chosen ability allows her to view others' status windows, including their true names, stats, and the personal notes they've written. Shigeru's expression tightens as he realizes she's read the private notes he jotted down, which make him come across like a bitter loner. He facepalms and asks Rise directly what she wants from him. Rise brings up Seika and questions whether Shigeru has figured out that her body had been paralyzed in a previous life. He confirms his suspicion, and Rise wastes no time revealing that she was the one responsible for Seika's condition back then, and that she's here to make amends. Curious, Shigeru presses her for details about what exactly happened. Rise explains that in her former life, she was involved in a program meant to improve people's lives. Seika had been one of the children under their care, and Rise had truly hoped to help her live a better life. But then a tragic explosion destroyed their facility, leaving Seika gravely injured. Tears begin streaming down Rise's face as she recalls her failure to prevent the catastrophe. Miscommunication and errors among those working in the program had led to the disaster, and the guilt has haunted her ever since. To avoid repeating those mistakes, she had written in her special note that she wanted the power to better understand others, and that wish manifested in her current ability. When Shigeru asks about the nature of the program, she reveals it was linked to artificial intelligence. This rings a bell for Shigeru, who remembers that Sage's company collapsed due to a malfunctioning AI system and a subsequent explosion. He puts two and two together and asks if it's the same incident. Rise confirms it, and reveals she is actually Sage's sister. Though she has altered her behavior and personality in this new world to prevent him from recognizing her. Still uncertain, Shigeru questions the truth of her story, but Rise insists she cannot lie, it was the trade-off she made to gain her power. She believes it's not mere coincidence that they all ended up in this world at the same time. Their fates, she claims, have been tied together even before this life. She knows Shigeru is trying to ensure Seika's happiness and help guide Seiji to become a stronger adventurer, and she offers her help in that mission. Shigeru agrees, noting that both Seiji and Seika are kind-hearted and naive, needing someone reliable to protect and support them. He decides to work with Rise, but is completely baffled when she suddenly cuts her hair short as a symbolic gesture. She explains it's because Seika once said she looked better with short hair. With that odd moment behind them, the two officially team up, vowing to support their mutual friends. The next day, they prepare for their journey to the capital. Shigeru arranges a strange beast, a turtle-goat hybrid, to help carry their gear. Rise is the last to join the group, and when Seika compliments her new haircut, she becomes emotional, clearly touched by the kindness. Their journey begins as they encounter a group of wild creatures. Seika uses her ice magic to freeze one, and as another lunges at her, Seiji steps in to defend her, with Rise handling threats from behind. The group quickly overcomes the monsters, and Seika showcases her magical talent to Shai-Drew, who silently acknowledges her skill. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, Seiji suggests finding a spot to rest for the night, and everyone agrees. Their destination is the city of Valeria, and due to Seika's desire for an adventurous route, they've taken a dangerous path through monster-infested mountains with no shelter options. Fortunately, they discover a large hollow tree that serves as a makeshift shelter, which Seika finds exciting. Seiji asks if she wants to gather firewood or try fishing. Eagerly, Seika vows to catch the biggest fish in the river, only to end up hooking her own robe. Shai-Drew helps her get untangled and joins her at the riverbank. While waiting for a bite, Seika unexpectedly opens up, confessing that she cries easily and wants to grow into someone more composed. Shai-Drew reassures her, saying that crying isn't a weakness. He explains that people cry not just from sadness, but also when overwhelmed by powerful emotions. He reflects on his own past and adds that losing the ability to cry can stunt emotional growth. Instead of trying to suppress her tears, he advises Seika to understand what stirs her heart. Touched by his words, Seika tears up again. At that moment, Riz arrives. Upon learning they haven't caught anything, she effortlessly zaps a few fish out of the river and hands them to Seika. Excited, Seika runs back to share them with Seiji. Meanwhile, Riz tells Shai-Drew that Seika always seems genuinely happy around him. She adds that his presence brings comfort and smiles to others, making him a valuable part of their group. Shai-Drew, a bit embarrassed, prepares to leave, but Riz stops him. She asks him to keep her true identity a secret, fearing it might cause division in the group. He agrees. When they return to camp, Seiji and Seika are already preparing dinner. As they settle down to eat, Seika imitates Riz playfully, and Shai-Drew turns to Seiji with a thoughtful question: what does he see as the ultimate goal of their journey? Seiji becomes serious and replies that, for now, reaching Valeria is their immediate target. He wants to better understand the world and its issues before deciding on their purpose. Shai-Drew is impressed by his mindset, but just then, a noise rustles in the nearby bushes. A badly injured and worn-out woman stumbles out of the forest and collapses just as Shai-Drew's group notices her presence. While unconscious, she dreams of being chased by bandits, reflecting on how her reincarnation into this world hasn't helped her survive real danger. She blames her strange personal note for her helplessness. In her former life, she considered herself unattractive and experienced heartbreak when her boyfriend left her for someone more beautiful. Constant ridicule from peers led her to harbor resentment toward attractive women. Her dream ends abruptly, and she awakens in the camp, with Seiji tending to her injuries. Seiji reassures her that they've cleaned her wounds and applied basic treatment. Soon after, Seika arrives with warm water to help clean her further. The woman instinctively flinches, clearly uncomfortable with Seika's beauty. Seiji explains that Seika used healing magic to help her, but it doesn't improve her mood. When Seika tries to be friendly, the woman grows visibly irritated and asks Seiji to move her closer to the campfire. Seika is disheartened, but Shai-Drew reminds her that not everyone welcomes sudden closeness, especially strangers. He also warns her to stay away from the woman, as he knows something unsettling about her. Back when the woman collapsed, Seiji asked Shai-Drew to fetch water. On the way, Riz stopped him with a grave expression, revealing that the injured woman was also a reincarnator. Her note contained a disturbing vow to never forgive beautiful girls and to harm them brutally. They immediately suspected Seika might be her target. In the present, Seiji offers the woman, who introduces herself as Ria, some food. She accepts, but when Seika brings her a bowl, Ria's deep-seated bitterness resurfaces. She tries to grab a weapon, but fortunately Riz had already confiscated it and is quietly keeping watch. Shai-Drew also remains alert, ready to intervene. When asked about her injuries, Ria claims that her group was attacked and she got separated. Shai-Drew doubts the full truth of her story, but Seiji offers her protection until they reach Valeria. She accepts the offer, though her reaction to Seika's encouragement reveals lingering hostility, causing her to accidentally aggravate her wounds. Seiji advises her to stay calm, but Ria says she needs to visit the river. She asks Seika to accompany her, but Seiji steps in, offering to help instead. When he does, Ria retorts with suspicion, accusing him of being a pervert for trying to join her near the river if she was planning to bathe. Seiji becomes visibly embarrassed, and Seika innocently questions whether he might be a pervert. The sheer emotional blow causes Seiji to pass out. Seiji moves to check on him. Ria warns him that if he comes within 10 feet of her, she'll start screaming. Seiji responds that he has no desire to get close anyway. Just then, Riz appears and offers to escort Ria to the river. However, since Ria can't lie, her true emotions are on full display. Shai-Drew wishes she would at least mask her violent aura, which clearly unsettles Ria. Because of that, she requests that Seika take her instead. Seika agrees and even returns Ria's weapon in case monsters appear. This alarms Shai-Drew, who feels that giving her the weapon makes things more dangerous. Riz decides to quietly follow them to ensure Seika's safety. Shai-Drew also attempts to follow but is stopped by Seiji, who argues that they should give the girls their privacy. Shai-Drew protests, calling Ria a threat, and Seiji agrees, saying the allure of a mature woman is a dangerous thing. Shai-Drew doesn't want to hear Seiji's dramatic sentiments, but to avoid raising suspicion, he uses high-speed movement to keep switching between locations, watching over both groups. Seiji briefly sees his blurred image and comments on it, but Shai-Drew brushes it off, saying Seiji must be tired. He encourages Seiji to rest, then discreetly casts a sleep spell to put him out. With Seiji safely asleep, Shai-Drew goes to check on Ria. There, he sees her draw a sword on Seika. Shocked, Seika asks if he's done something wrong. Ria insists Seika is kind and innocent but reveals that she's bound by the vows she made in her personal notebook. She explains that she harbors deep hatred for beautiful girls due to trauma from her past life and made a vow to eliminate them in this world. She infiltrated multiple adventuring parties, targeting the attractive female members, and fled before she could be caught, until now. She declares Seika as her next target and raises her blade, but reshoots it out of her hand just in time. Ria lunges to retrieve it, but Shai-Drew intercepts her, grabbing her wrist. She demands he release her, but he draws his sword and says she has nowhere to run. Suddenly, a blinding light envelops the area. Everyone shields their eyes, trying to locate the source. To their astonishment, it's Seika, now radiating with a divine glow, appearing like an actual angel. And that's where today's video ends. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.